Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today's topic is, of course, another near and dear one to my heart, but needs to be spoken about. Um, so let me go ahead and get started. The title is The Definition of Rape. So I want to give two definitions and then I'll just go right into it. Molestation. And I'm sorry, I'm reading it from my phone. The crime of sexual acts with children up to the age of 18, including touching of private parts, exposure to genitalia, taking of pornographic pictures, rape, inducement of sexual acts with the molester or with other children, and variations of these acts by pedophiles. Molestation also applies to incest by a relative with a minor family member and any unwanted sexual act with adults short of rape. So that's the definition of molestation. And let's see if I can really quickly find the definition of rape that I used just a moment ago in my blog, which is live now, according to the Department of Justice. That's what I used. The definition of rape, according to the Department of Justice, is the penetration, no matter how slight, of a vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. So let me go ahead and get started, because I've been reading some things that have just been very disturbing to me, and I can't clearly understand the mindset behind it. I can only think misogyny when I hear some of these things. Warped minds, mental illness. There's got to be something mentally wrong with these people when they say it. And this, of course, is just my opinion. I'm not trying to say that my opinion is the majority opinion, because I don't know. I've not taken a poll. I have no idea what the majority of society thinks about this. But this is my opinion. This is my story. I distinctly remember at the age of 5, someone telling me, a male, telling me how pretty I was, and then touching my vagina through my panties. I distinctly remember that, but the face I don't see. The voice I hear, the face I don't see. That's molestation. I never said anything to anyone about it. I remember a few years later staying at a family member's house. We were living there at the time off and on, and another family member, I was in the front, it wasn't really a bedroom, but we used it as a bedroom. I remember being up there on the sleeper sofa and hearing this person come into the room with me, and then getting on top of me and trying to take my clothes off and telling me that they've been watching me, and then hearing someone say, "Get off of her," and that person jumping up and going away, running away. I remember that vividly. I never said anything. A few years after that, I remember leaving. Every Saturday I bowled for several years, and I remember leaving the bowling alley one Saturday morning, and I had to be about 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, and I was walking down the street to the bus stop, and this guy ran up to me and grabbed my butt and squeezed. And when I turned around in shock, I mean literal shock, I was just dumbfounded by the fact that this person had done this in broad daylight. I couldn't speak. And he stood there with this goofy grin on his face, as if he'd really just accomplished a major act. And then he left. He walked away. And I turned around and I walked away, still in disbelief, still in shock, still not understanding, like comprehending what really just happened. And again, I didn't say anything. Didn't say a word. But at 17, I was raped by a family acquaintance. And I say acquaintance because it wasn't someone that I quite honestly cared for, but this person was always around. Um, but I was raped by this person. They were high on crack. I was raped by this person, and when they came to their senses, they realized what they had done, and they ran and left the house. I locked the door and slid down the wall, crying, just a puddle of tears. And then I did eventually, you know, call the police and call my mom and report all of this stuff. Was rushed to the hospital. All of the different testing was done. Went to the police station and gave a formal report. Went through the entire process, the protocol that is required of going through such a thing. I did it. Got to court and gave my testimony on the stand. This person did the same thing and lied. Outright lied about it. And then my mother backed it up. It did not help that my mother allowed this person to be around us again after this all happened. This happened in July, and my mother had this person back around us by November. And when we went to court the following year, all of that played a part in that person getting off. And so I shut my mouth again. I didn't talk about anything again. I had finally spoken up about something that happened to me that should not have happened, and I was the one punished. I was the one punished for it, because on top of them lying on the stand and my mother backing them, this person's family did not believe me, and there was talk all over our building, because at the time I was living in a high-rise. There was talk all over our building about what had happened. And so I am raped and then victimized all over again, because the voices, the rumors, all of that stuff is happening, and then the people aren't believing me, just simply because of the situation overall. So I shut down again. I shut down again. And when I went away to college, I'm down, I started college at home at the community college and was finally able to go away to school for the winter semester. And I got down there, and there was only one other black girl on the floor. And so she had been there for a year already. She was in her sophomore year, and she kind of took me under her wing. And I didn't realize initially what kind of person she was, and had gone out with her a couple of times, had gone out with her to meet a couple of people, and she was really big on, making herself known and, having a good time. And she introduced me to this guy. She introduced me to the guy that she was going to hang out with, and then also introduced me to his friend who I was supposed to hang out with. And we're sitting there watching TV in his room, and we're, just not really even talking. Excuse me, it was small talk, because it was an awkward situation for me. Here I am not knowing that this is, someone that she wants me to hook up with, so it was kind of weird for me. It was awkward. But apparently there had been a conversation had without my knowledge that I was going to put out that night. So we're sitting and we're talking, and then the next thing I know, we're lying in bed. And this was, cell phones weren't really popular then, so it wasn't like I could just call her up and say, girl, this isn't what I'm all about, and I need to be able to get home. I had no idea where I was, didn't know how to get back to my room, so I was basically at his mercy, in his bed, in his room. And the next thing I know, he's inside me, and I'm, lying there with tears rolling down my face, because it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I had planned. And I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place, because I, again, did not know where I was, did not know how to get back to my room. It was completely dark, and I was in a strange town. So I was stuck. I was stuck. And after it was all said and done, and she came back to the room to get me that next morning, I never said a word. I never said a word. No, I take that back. I did ask her if that was something that she had planned, and she said no, it just kind of happened that way. But the way she said it, and the things that she said around it, let me know that no, she had actually planned this whole thing. Her date was, dependent upon her getting this guy a date. So, but after that, I never said anything else. I never said anything else about it. Didn't tell anyone else about it. So to hear people say, and when I say people, I mean those of prominence, those of affluence, saying that these are things that they do to people, specifically women. They molest them, they grab them by their private parts, they grab them, they kiss them, they engage in sexual intercourse with them, and the woman isn't going to say anything, or the victim, but specifically the woman isn't going to say anything because, he's rich, or he's famous, or both. And the woman is in fear. She's handed a couple of $1,000s and told to never say anything else about it. Or she's not handed a couple of $1,000s, but because, this person is affluent, and because this person is famous, and he may have said something to her about speaking, she's in fear, so she says nothing. Or the victim says nothing because they just don't want to be put in the spotlight. Or the victim says nothing because their family would not understand. Or the victim says nothing because they will be victimized all over again and have to relive this thing all over again. Going to the police station to file charges, going to the hospital to have all this testing done, going to court and getting on the stand and telling your side of what happened is all very traumatic. And you do feel like you're being victimized all over again because you have to keep reliving this incident. And not everyone is strong enough to do that. So to hear of people saying something so disturbing as, well, if this really happened, then this person would have said something, or her family would have said something and reported it. That's not always the truth. It's not always the truth. Not everyone speaks up, and for various reasons. So I felt I needed to not only write the blog, but make the video, because it just disturbs my soul to know that society has placed victims in such a vice. They place them in a vice, and they're squeezing, and they're making it difficult for those who have truly been victimized to speak out. And yes, there are people that lie about being a victim. There are people that lie about being molested and lie about being raped, just because the other person has some influence or some fame, or just because they want to damage that person's reputation, whether they have the influence or fame or not. Yes, there are people that lie about that. Women specifically. There are people that, and I keep saying women specifically because men can be raped as well. So let's get that straight. Men can be rape victims as well. But speaking from a woman's point of view, I want to keep saying, or I am going to keep saying, women specifically. But yeah, there are those that lie about it, but that's a different story altogether. That's a sad commentary altogether, and would require more time. And I don't have that time to invest right now. So it really just overall disturbs me when I hear these things. And I've told my story before. I've put my story in my book. I have written about my story before on other social media platforms. So it's not like I'm saying anything new. I'm not revealing this, new secret. It's out there already. But I'm telling my story because I am the definition of rape. I have been molested. I have been raped. And I have kept silent for various reasons. And when I did speak out on the one instance, I wasn't believed. So I went through all of that to tell my truth, and then the person that offended me got off scot-free. In the legal sense, got off scot-free. So I am the definition of rape. And there are many others out there that share my story. You know, they have the same story or something very similar. They are definitions of rape. And I just want people to get that understanding. We don't always tell. We don't always feel safe in telling. And with that, peace and blessings. Remember to walk in your purpose and know that I appreciate you.